Tomorrow is going to be a beauty. Details later.
Tonight, 2 of these 6 people could win $100,000. And 2 of these 6 people could win $1 million on the Massachusetts State Lottery's Big Money Show. Now, here are the hosts for our show, Diane Page and Tom Russell.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, Diane.
Tom, before we start, I have to say a special hello to the crew of guys working up in my new house, especially Frank, Dave, and Mike. When we've all been painting today, and they didn't think that I could get ready for the show. I don't have the paint on.
You didn't quite. You got a little paint in the back here, but it's a good
Hi,
color.
guys.
It matches.
Okay.
Good luck, everybody, here tonight, and good luck with the painting of the house.
Thanks.
We got a great audience. We got some great contestants. We got a lovely young lady over here I want you to meet, Kathleen Staples from Springfield, our $100,000 home partner from last week. Make her feel welcome, everybody. How you doing?
Oh, good.
Get in here closer to me now. First thing we have to do is find out what number and color you've chosen.
4 yellow.
4 in yellow. Now, what do you do for a living?
I'm a customer service representative for Baybank Valley, Springfield.
And you enjoy your job?
Oh, I love my job.
And you have a little boy?
Yes, I do. His name is Carlton, and he's 2 years old.
Carlton, yell, hi, Mommy. He's watching himself on a monitor. He can't take his eyes off it. You also have something in your hand. Tell us what it is.
Oh, yeah. This is my lucky jackpot. Made me buy my lottery season ticket.
And it plays a tune.
It plays a tune. We'll wind it up here.
That's the impossible
The
dream.
impossible dream.
Well, it may not be impossible tonight, my dear. Kathleen, you picked 4 yellow.
Yep.
If you don't pick the 4 or the, you don't get the 4 or the yellow, you get 1,000. You get the yellow but not the 4, you get 5. The 4 but not the yellow, 10. Put them together, it's $100,000. And good luck. Push the button and release it. Pushed it with a lucky charm, too. She got lucky charms all over tonight. A delightful young lady with a delightful family looking for 4 yellow for $100,000. And the magic music box is still playing that impossible dream. Sure you can talk.
Come on, girls at Baybank. Come on. Poppy, Annie, Mom.
Everybody's rooting for it at the Baybank. You wouldn't be nervous a little bit, would you, Kathleen? Keep your eye on the wheel. It might land in that 4 yellow, which you're looking for. Right in and out. Had an awful close one last week. Had 3 close ones last week. Let's hope we get some hits tonight. Bounced over it. Well, she's still got at least 1 more drop and maybe in a pretty good position. Looks close. Looks close for a drop. Kathleen Dallin, you got 4 green. That doesn't mean 100,000. It means 10,000. Thank you so much. Back to her seat she goes, $10,000 richer. Wow. I rather hesitate to think what would have happened if she won 100,000.
I was just thinking the same thing myself.
I enjoyed
Have
that.
the
Let's do it
breath
all over
squeezed
again.
out of you.
Well, now let's meet our $100,000 team, Diane.
Okay, a Parasita Kamara of Taunton is the contestant number 1. A Parasita, it works for Reed and Barton. Hobbies are cooking and dancing, and she's the mother of 2 children.
Parasita, nice to have you with us tonight.
Thank you.
You tell me you were originally from Brazil,
Yes, I am.
and what are you doing here that's interesting for you?
Well, everything is beautiful. Everything is interesting me anyway. Because I love to talk to people. I enjoy to be here in the meantime. That's it.
And
I'm
I'm
nervous to
glad
talk.
to have you with us, and good luck tonight.
Thank you.
And next we have
Genevieve Murphy of Lawrence is next. Genevieve is a retired clerk from the Lawrence School Department. Her hobbies are macrame, needlepoint, and reading.
Nice to have you with us, Genevieve. Before the program, Genevieve said to our lovely young lady on her right, if you talk too much, I'll just give you a knock. You haven't had to yet, have you?
To someone.
Sure you can, darling. Go ahead.
I want to say hello to Kevin and Patrick O'Loughlin and Becky Pierce.
Okay, and good luck to you, Genevieve. Next we have
Next is Mary Staney of Worcester. Mary is retired from Filene's. Her hobbies are bingo, crocheting, and the lottery. 5 children and 7 grandchildren.
calls for a round of applause. 7 grandchildren, I think, calls for that. Don't you, Mary? Mary, nice to have you with us. Got a lot of friends in Worcester watching you.
Yes, loads of them, yes.
They're all rooting for you tonight.
Yes, I'd like to say hi to all my friends, relatives, Filene's retirees, and happy anniversary to my daughter Kathy and her husband Jim on their 9th today.
And even your enemies.
My enemies,
Good luck,
too.
Mary.
Thank
And next we have
From Chicopee, we have Wanda Zemanek. Wanda is an office manager for Alston Supplies. Her hobbies are camping, bowling, and reading. She's the mother of 2.
Wanda. Where you been camping this year?
At Otis.
At Otis? That's down
In
on
the Berkshires.
In the Berkshires, huh? Do you travel around just Massachusetts, or do you get out of state?
We used to when the children were younger. Now it's simply Otis that
I
we
see.
camp.
Okay, well, you enjoy it, of course.
Oh, very
You do your
much.
cooking outside on an open fire?
No.
Oh,
Inside.
You do it the easy way. Huh?
Right.
Well, good luck to you tonight, Wanda.
Thank you.
And next we have
Representing Joan Gray of Malden is her husband, Ivan. Ivan's with New England Telephone. He enjoys sailing, and they have 2 children.
Ivan. Nice to have you with us tonight. Sorry Joan couldn't be here.
Good to be here.
That would have made 5 women on the panel.
That's right.
Normally I've got all men on the panel. Tonight it's nice to see these ladies. What have you been thinking all week?
Very nervous.
Just get the 100,000, huh?
Get here.
I'd like to say hello to Joan before we
It's
leave.
just good to be here, Tom.
Okay. Well, good luck to you.
Never forgive me if I didn't say hi to the gang back at Salem with my 2 daughters, Stephanie and Sherry.
Okay. Then good luck, everybody. It's low number for $1,000. You know that. Low number out. Here we go. Everybody, 1, 2, 3, and push the button. And they all have, and we'll know in a few minutes which one of these 5 people goes to the $100,000 wheel. 4, 4, 4, 2, 4. Wanda, camping with $1,000. Clear the board. Okay, everybody else, push one more time. And now we've got 5, 4, 3, 4. Mary Staney out of the game with 1,000. Clear the board. Okay, everybody, one more time. Push again. Three, 5, 4. Okay, clear the board. It's between Genevieve and Ivan. Push once again. Genevieve Murphy going for herself, and Ivan playing for Joan Gray, his wife. Got a 3, and we got a 2. So, Genevieve Murphy, you will go to the $100,000 wheel very shortly. Not yet, Genevieve. Stay where you are for a moment while we spin these yellow wheels and find out who our home partners are. Okay, we know that Miss Camaro won $1,000, her home partner.
Her home partner is John Nicholas of Ware.
Genevieve will be back with us. Mary Staney won $1,000, her home partner.
Mrs. Marie Proctor of Lunenburg.
Wanda won $1,000, her home partner.
From Chicopee, Kay and John Peltz.
And Ivan won $1,000 for Joan Gray, his home partner.
Sheila Haynes of Byfield.
Now we're drawing the first 3 digits in yellow for the week of June 17th, 1981. And we'll know very shortly. Watch your tickets if you've got them out there at home. We have a 4. And we have a 3, I think. Yes, we do, a 3. So we have 4, 3, 4 in yellow. If you have those, you're well on your way to making big money on the Wednesday night Big Money Show. We'll be back with Genevieve Murphy at the $100,000 wheel. Don't you go away.
Mom, he took my brownie.
Ricky.
Oh, he took half. I can't put it back together.
Well, you can if it's moist.
It's magic.
Duncan Hines does the trick. The liquid chocolate flavor packet makes a moist batter that makes brownies so moist they cling.
Magic. For my next trick, I'll make this brownie disappear.
Duncan Hines brownies. Our magic is our moistness. You don't have to be an expert on cheese to choose a fine cheddar. 2 words say it all. Cracker Barrel. So carefully made, so cautiously aged, for the peak of pure cheddar perfection. Cracker Barrel cheddar from Kraft. Our pride, your joy.
Summertime. Time for mosquitoes, flies, gnats, bees. Well, thanks to fast-acting Afterbite, you can get soothing relief from irritating, painful bites and stings. Simply rub on Afterbite. Its exclusive formula quickly stops the itching and reduces swelling. Afterbite is available in handy applicator or disposable wipes. Satisfaction guaranteed or your money back. Get Afterbite today at Brooks Drug, Adams Drug, Brooks Discount, Love Stores, Heartland Drug, and Garb Drug.
Only one show in the morning comes alive without a warning. It's New England, it's live, it's Good Day.
Have you ever wondered whether your child has asthma or just a bad case of allergies? Well, on our next Good Day, we'll all learn how to tell the difference. Will women's rights survive the current Reagan administration? We'll talk about that issue. We'll look at the lighter side of marriage, the demise of the real paper, and we continue 2 series currently in motion, one on tennis and the legalities of moving.
It's New England, it's live, it's good day.
We're back here now with a handsome gentleman from Deerfield, New Hampshire, Donald Daly, who's won $100,000 in our Cash in a Flash game. To present his check, here's our Assistant Director of the Lottery, Jim Hosker. Jim?
Donald, always nice to present a check to a neighbor from the north. There you are, and good luck to you. Spend it in good health.
Thank you very much.
How do you feel about that, Don?
Wonderful.
A little nervous?
Yes.
There's a couple of guys over there that'll quiet you down on the way home. Now, I'm going to get back here with Genevieve Murphy in a moment, but she won it for home partner Diane. Who was that?
The home partner is Zara Rodriguez of New Bedford. Zara will have a chance to come in next week, spin that wheel for $100,000.
And now, sweet Genevieve, tell us what number and color.
5 green.
5 and green, and Diane's been told she's coming over to post them for you. You've been standing here now for a couple of minutes, probably scared to death.
Yes.
Are you? Been thinking anything in the 2 minutes?
100,000.
100,000, that's the thing to think. Let me remind you, if you don't get the 5 or the green, it's 1,000. You get the green but not the 5, it's 5. I have to do this legally, you know. 5 but not the green, 10,000. Put them together, and you don't care what I say.
No.
Good luck. Push the button and release it. It'll be off and running for a very nice gal, Genevieve Murphy from Lawrence. Hoping she'll get a little luck of the Irish tonight. Looking for a 5 and green. While the wheel is spinning, let me remind you, tomorrow I'll be at the Liggett Drug Store in Andover, 229 Main Street. That's on June 18th, Thursday, from 11 to 2. Liggett Drug in Andover. Genevieve is watching that wheel go. Trying to talk it home to a 5 green. In and out. Still got a couple more drops, though. He said, oh, shoot. Got at least one more drop. Let's hope now it hangs right in there, because it's not going to go again. Well, Genevieve, it did hang right in there for $5,000.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Join Diane, if you will. And a couple of gentlemen coming in here now. William Wall from Hyde Park and Jim Hosker again. Bill has won himself $50,000, and here's Jim Hosker with the check.
Bill, great pleasure. A repeat winner, Tom, one of our old-time winners. A great customer. Bill, thanks a lot. Good luck to you.
Together.
Have
Thank
a
you
good
so
time
much.
with it.
Congratulations. Good to see you, Bill. Spend it wisely and have fun.
Right.
If you can do both at the same time, that's good. Good. Okay, Diane has put the air to the blue wheels. They're running now, and you can see probably a split screen here. See me on the top and the wheels down below. We already have a 434 in yellow. We're waiting for the blue numbers. If you combine those, you've won $1,000 and well on your way to $50,000. You've got the tickets at home. If you're reading those numbers, you know where you stand. We have a 0, and we have a 5. So the numbers are so far 434 in yellow, 0, 5 in blue. We'll be back with our $1 million home partner. We meet our $1 million team, and we got a $200,000 arts lottery coming up, too. Don't you go away.
I got a square meal in a round pocket.
I got a square meal in a round pocket.
Introducing Sahara bread. Now you can pack a meal in a sandwich with Sahara, the delicious bread with a pocket. Pack Sahara with the good food you want your family to eat. Even foods ordinary sandwich breads can't hold. Pack a meal in Sahara bread.
They got a square meal
in a round pocket.
Now you can pack a meal in a sandwich with Sahara, made by Thomas's, the English muffin people.
I thought Cons was good. I didn't believe they could put that good a meat in there.
Shoppers at this store were really surprised to see what goes into Cons beef franks.
This is good. If this type of meat is in this hot dog, then it's good meat. I didn't know they were that good. I knew they were good with that.
Only first quality cuts of beef. No fillers ever with Cons.
Cons brand was new to me, but I've used it in a while. I trust Cons.
Great meat makes great franks. Depend on Cons.
A drinking problem affects your health, your home life, and your work. It's easy to deny the problem, but you've got to face it. The Alcohol Unit of Brigham and Women's Hospital offers outpatient treatment of alcohol problems with specialized services for you and your family. You'll get the respect you deserve in a comfortable, confidential atmosphere. Don't turn away. Face it. you can get help. The Alcohol Unit, 732-6022.
In a small town in Connecticut, a bizarre tale of murder unfolds.
We knew it was some sort of evil force.
In a landmark court case, the question remains, did the devil make him do it? Chet Curtis reports. Then Anne McGrath looks at a growing social phenomenon, motherhood without fathers.
Family to me did not necessarily mean marriage.
And Janet Langhart gives us a rare glimpse of one of New England's most precious cultural resources, the McDowell Arts Colony. It's all on calendar, June 17th at 8 on Channel 5.
Well, here we are again. It's a little different trio, but we got Reginald Carter here. His wife won $200,000 in the arts lottery, and he's down here to pick it up tonight and to present the check. Here's Jim Hosker.
She's got to be a trusting wife, Tom. Reginald, congratulations to you and the wife, and good luck to you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Give her our love,
I will.
and congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, I'm going to join Doris Manzi in just a moment, our home partner. But, Diane, tell us who'll be playing with us next week.
Sure will, Tom. On Team 1, playing for $100,000, we'll have Robert Gonsalves of Woburn, Cynthia Wesley of Arlington, Robert Reynolds of Brookfield, David Gregoire of Lowell, and Arthur Tordoff of Canton. Playing on Team 2 for $1 million will be Mike Jicky of East Dedham, Walter Wright of Bass River, Betty Chapman of Lunenburg, Teresa Mustone of Boston, and G. Apostolo of Hull.
Thank you very much, Diane. We're back here now with Doris Manzi from Webster. Doris, the first thing we got to find out from you is your number and color.
1 in yellow.
1 in yellow, and Diane will post it. You're our $1 Million home partner from last week. Tell me, were you watching the program?
Yes, part of it, but my husband is the one that really saw it, and he hollered at me.
Who didn't holler, did he?
Oh, yeah, the neighbors and all.
Yeah, I understand you're retired.
Yeah, that's right.
So $1 million would go a long way, wouldn't it?
It certainly would.
Well, before I do anything more, somebody complained during the week that we had a spot on this $1 million wheel. They said, fix it if you will, so.
That's it.
Yeah, that's better, okay? All right, now, you got a 1 yellow going for you. If you don't get the 1 or the yellow, my dear, you get $1,000. Get the yellow, but not the 1, 5,000. The 1, but not the yellow, you get 10,000. Put them together, you get the 1 yellow. It's $1 million. Push the button and release it. And it's going for Doris Manzi from Webster, looking for a 1 yellow for $1 million. Oh, it flirted with that 1 yellow. It still has a few turns to go. We're due for a $1 million winner. It's been a few weeks now. And odds being what they are, we're due any time. Roll right in and out. Flirting with that 1. Oh. I don't think it has enough steam to go to 1, but let's hope for a drop into a yellow. Tell you what we do. Let's wait for that backspin, Doris, because I'm praying for a drop on the backspin into a yellow. I don't think it can happen, but it might. Not going to do it. Darling, you're a wonderful contestant.
Thank you very
so
much.
Say hello to everybody in Webster.
I will. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Oh, dear, it tried hard.
Stubborn little thing tonight.
Now, we have 5 gentlemen over here going for $1 million. Who are they, Diane?
It's not often I get the pleasure to introduce 5 male contestants. I'll begin with Pat Piscitelli of Brockton. Pat is a lawyer. His hobbies are skiing, racquetball, and chess. He's the father of 3.
Pat, nice to have you with us tonight.
Nice to be here, thank you.
You got 3 children?
Yes, I do. I have 2 of them with me here, Matthew and Mikey, who are right there in the second row.
And have they been really giving it to you all week to get the $1 million?
They have already distributed amongst my other children and themselves.
Probably $4 million gone already in their minds, huh?
You're in
Nothing
trouble.
but dead, right.
Well, good luck to you, Pat.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. And next we have...
Representing John Gates of Beverly Farms is his son, John Gates, also of Beverly. John is a firefighter in Beverly. He enjoys saltwater fishing and boating. He is the father of 3.
John, I really have good reasons. I won't tell you all. We always get a round of applause for firefighters. Most terrific people in the world, I think. They do a very dedicated job. Now, you're here representing your father tonight. And he gave you instructions, did he? What number to pick and so on, if you got there? And you want to say hello to him?
I sure do. He knows I'm saying hello to him. He's there praying like everybody else.
He's hanging right in there waiting
yeah.
for that big one. Good luck to you, John.
Thank you.
Good luck. And next we have...
Lawrence Riley of Andover is next. Lawrence is a letter carrier, enjoys golf and local sports teams, and he's single.
Lawrence, good to have you with us.
Thanks, Tom. Nice to be
You
here.
hitting them pretty good this year?
Oh, no. Terrible.
Do you tell the truth about your game?
Oh, yeah, I do.
It's the biggest problem right there, you know.
I have a hard time breaking 100, Tom. Put
Do
it
you?
that way.
Well, you know that only 5% of American golfers break 100?
So they say. Yeah.
That's the truth. Lawrence, good luck to you tonight.
Thank you. And I say hello to
Sure.
Dot, Katie, and Megan, and all the employees at the Andover Post Office, and to the chairman of the board, Bernie McDonough and Lawrence.
Okay, and may I also add that I'm one of the 95%. I don't break 100. Next we have
Stanley Mieszkowski of Hadley is next. Stanley's been helping me out with my Polish pronunciation. He's a janitor at UMass in Amherst, enjoys gardening and the lottery. He's the father of one.
Give me that last name again, will you?
Mieszkowski.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Well, look at him. See if it's right before you come.
Okay, good. Actually,
really
Stanley, I have a tough time sometimes with Polish names, but I think she does a great job. And I've met Polish people out around Chicopee and Holyoke and all over saying, that girl's got to be Polish.
We'll give the Italians
Are you
equal time
Polish?
next week. No, I'm not.
Oh, she just knows the language very well. Well, Stanley, you must have had some advice from people during the week, because I know those people out in that neck of the woods are great gamblers. Everybody told you what to do and how to do it.
That's right. They're all rooting for me.
Are they?
That's right.
Want to say hello to anybody?
Yes, to my 92-year-old mother, and to the family and my friends and the co-workers at the University of Massachusetts.
Well, you better win tonight, or Mom will give you the devil, you know. She's 92 years old. And next?
From Duxbury, Harry Bernard. Harry is creative director for Affordable Brochures. His hobbies, racquetball, painting, and printmaking. He has 2 children.
And I thank you, Diane. That creative director for Affordable Brochures. Yep. Can we talk after the program?
Sure.
All right. Thought you might like
I'm always
business.
trying to sell.
Harry, we'll talk later. But tell me about your racquetball playing and your other hobbies.
Well, my racquetball is just starting to take hold. I'd get more partners to play with, I'd probably be better.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Be honest about it.
Any day. I'm good some days.
All right, Harry, good luck to you tonight.
Can I say hello to Shay?
Sure.
And Galen and Pam?
Okay. Now we're all set to go. It's low number out for $1,000. All set. When I say 3, push the button. 1, 2, 3, and everybody push. And they all did, and we're off and running. One of these 5 will go to the $1 million wheel. We got a 5, 4, 3, 2, 3. Stanley, she pronounced your name good, but you're out of the game. Okay, everybody else, push one more time. Even good? 4, 4, 4, 3, Harry. Low man on the totem pole. Clear the board. Okay. M, O, and N. Push one more time. Pat, John, and Lawrence going for it here. 4, 3, and a 1. Lawrence out of the game. Clear the board. It's between Pat and John Jr. One more time. Pat wished John good luck, and John wished Pat good luck, and neither of them meant it, really. I guess they did. We got a 4 and a 4, a tie. Clear the board. Once again, gentlemen. One and a 2. John Gates, you'll go to the $1 million wheel very shortly. He heaved a big sigh of relief on that. Okay. We know that Pat fought hard for his $1,000, his home partner.
Catherine M. Boyle of Boston.
And John will be going to the big wheel. Lawrence won $1,000, his home partner.
Beatrice Zukovich of South Boston.
Nice job. Stanley did a nice job on his for $1,000. Home partner, please.
Alfred J. Baggy of Springfield.
And Harry Bernard won $1,000, his home partner.
Paul Gibbs of West Deerfield.
Okay. We now have 434 in yellow, 05 in blue. We're waiting for the white number, and somebody, at least one out there, is going to match this tonight and go, yay, I won $50,000. Let's wait for that white number. It's going to be, I'm sure, a 1. So the number this week is 434 yellow, 05 in blue, and 1 in white. And we'll be back in just a moment with John Gates at the $1 million wheel. He's perspiring a little bit over there. We'll be back and see how he does. Don't go away.
Come to the South Shore Music Circus.
It's the best place to see a star like Glenn Campbell and Donna Fargo, Neil Sedaka, the Osmond Family, Anthony Newley and Suzanne Summers, Dionne Warwick and Count Basie, Harry Belafonte, Carol Channing and Hello Dolly,
That of Nurse Anne Capute. Last Friday, she was cleared of 2 charges, administering an overdose and the murder of Norma Linus. With us today, we're going to have both sides of the case represented. You're going to hear from Mrs. Capute and her attorney. But first, let me welcome the prosecuting attorney, Ronald Pina. Good morning, Counselor. First of all, I heard a statement on Good Morning America Monday, broadcast nationwide, that sent the antennae up. I want your reaction to the defense attorney's assertion that this case was one of the biggest wastes of the taxpayers' money he's ever seen.
Sure. 7 weeks of a trial we had, and we had 22 witnesses.
it's a type of case that you had to bring. How could you be a district attorney or anyone else and take an oath of office and have the evidence that I had, the statements that I had made by the defendant to other nurses, not just doctors and higher-ups in administration, but to other nurses? It would have been a total cover-up. I would have been on this show, and you would have been asking me why I'm covering up a case. The fact is that it was not a waste of money. The fact is that a not guilty plea finding has come in, but there's some large issues here.
What was the main issue?
Well, the main issue was obvious. The main issue was trying a case, and trying a case which had been brought to my office, and we had a defendant. But after that is all said and done, there's another issue here, patients' rights. Norma Linus, by the way, is the woman that died. Norma Linus has been forgotten by this case. That's sad, I think.
Yet was there conclusive evidence? The autopsy was not conclusive with its findings of the death itself.
That's the only thing I would have changed in this trial. I would have kept Dr. Keeley alive if I could have done that. Dr. Keeley was the state pathologist. He did the autopsy. He found that he couldn't tell you based on what he did in that autopsy. I mean, all he could do was put it in writing because he couldn't testify because he was dead, that there was no anatomical reason for her death that he could find. If you look at the nurse's notes, if you look at the hospital records, there was another reason that he could find and other doctors could find, and that was the morphine that the woman got. So that...
Yet isn't it true that in that autopsy it was found, an undiscovered tumor was found that no one had reported before, a breast tumor?
See, that's the situation. We had experts that came in, and I brought in Dr. Mary Ann Prout from Boston City Hospital, and chief of oncology there, and a full professor at Boston University, 35 years old, very, very bright woman. And she said that, in her opinion, this woman wasn't terminal because that tumor had not been discovered in the breast. The primary source of her cancer was breast tumor, like most women have. And she had never gotten the opportunity to treat that breast cancer. Never at all. And didn't she have a right to have that treated instead of, probably, we'll never know what happened. But in any case, she never got that treatment.
You're firmly convinced, then, that Mrs. Lemus did have a chance to live?
I can only tell you what the experts told me and what they told the jury. And they said, and Dr. Prout was never controverted by any cancer expert in that trial. There were other doctors there, and you can get a lot of experts. But the only cancer expert that came was Dr. Mary Ann Prout. And she said that woman could have lived for months to years. Who knows? But she never got treated.
Do you think you could have gotten a conviction if you'd tried this as a civil case?
Well, I can't try cases as civil cases. I'm a district attorney. I can only deal with the criminal law. The fact of the matter is that there would not have been any information for a civil case because the only way the information was obtained in this case was through the grand jury acting. I had to subpoena through the grand jury the hospital records. The hospital didn't voluntarily give us those statements or those reports. They continually tried to stop this case and tried to stop this information from becoming public. And they had attorneys, Ropes and Gray, of a major Boston law firm, that went right up to the Supreme Court.
Why was it not that the hospital was held in some way responsible?
Well, you know, as I say, you have to understand, I think the public has to understand something, and that is that this was a criminal case. There are other remedies now, and that doesn't mean the hospital is not going to be responsible. I can't criminally charge a hospital. For what? For negligence? That's up to the family.
Haven't there been cases of that, though?
Well, but it's up to the family. You have to prove criminal negligence. And I think what you're going to have right now, and that's just my opinion, is that there are a lot of other people here, too. And I think that another standard now applies, and that's a civil...
All right, now that brings us to the big question. There are two other nurses involved.
That's right.
Will you try them?
I'm going to talk to the Linus family first before I make that decision. That, to me, is the most important situation right now. I think that the public and the folks have forgotten about a woman named Norma Linus, and I haven't. And what her rights were as a patient in a hospital to have an opportunity to survive and live, and to see if she could get treatment. She had some rights.
But let me ask you this, Counselor.
Sure.
Isn't it true that you believe that Mrs. Capute was your best chance for a conviction? And if you don't get that, which you didn't,
well,
what chances do you think you will have of the other two?
I don't know. It's very difficult, because I know I put in a case with 22 witnesses, and with admissions by the defendant, and I had a jury that looked at it, and I think they were in a pressure cooker, and I think the jury, it was a tough decision for them to, I think it was tough for them to bite the bullet, if you want the truth.
What do you think lost the case?
So I don't know. What lost the case? I think two things: emotion, and I can understand it. I'm not out to get blood from anything, but I have a job to do, and I think emotion was very important in this case. And the second thing, Dr. Keeley was not there to testify as to what he saw in his autopsy.
Dr. Keeley, yet as far as the emotions are concerned, the jury was reported in the papers as saying they were not influenced by Mrs. Capute's testimony. Do you believe that?
I have my own opinions. The judge will always tell them in the charge you should not take sympathy into consideration, that if the facts are there, you must find, is what he said. Now, what people do in a jury room and what people do other than that is something else. Now, I can't say. I can just tell you what I think happened. I was in that room for seven weeks.
Well, I thank you very much, Ronald Pina, for being with us today, the prosecuting attorney in the Capute case. And as we said before, stand by, because you will meet Mrs. Capute and her attorney and Eileen after this.
I'm fed up with scrubbing.
Excuse me, but you need Tidy Bowl. Here.
Oh, it's you, the Tidy Bowl man. Will this help?
Sure. With each flush, Tidy Bowl releases strong cleaners that help keep toilet bowls stain-free.
How do I know Tidy Bowl's cleaning?
The sparkling color tells you that it's working hard. Tidy Bowl's powerful and safe on plumbing.
That's great.
Comes in lemon fresh blue or pine scented green. With Tidy Bowl, you'll scrub less.
Safe on plumbing, too.
Baby Fresh wipes are different now. Don't cry. Baby Fresh is even better now. New improved Baby Fresh is even softer, even thicker than before. Every big cushiony sheet is even softer, even thicker. Gets baby really clean, fresh clean. And a fresh clean baby's not so likely to get diaper rash. New improved Baby Fresh. It will make you happy, 'cause it's even softer, even thicker.
The first time I baked these cookies for my little girl, I used Sun-Made raisins. They were her very favorites.
They're still my favorite, Mama. So is Sun-Made.
It's the only raisin my little girl would eat.
Still is, Mom, because they always taste so good and fresh. You get the feeling the Sun-Made people really care. And that's important for my little girl.
So, take it from our little girl. Sun-Made, America's favorite for generations. Pass it on.
You're overweight. And you're fed up with being overweight. Well, I know, you've been through all kinds of diets, all kinds of diet pills. That's a joke. You ready to get down to business once and for all? Pick up the phone now and call Weight Loss Clinic. Our unique program is conducted under the guidance of experienced weight loss counselors and nurses. You learn how to lose weight safely and how to keep it off. And seriously, isn't that the only way to do it?
If you just joined us, we just heard District Attorney Ronald Pina, the prosecuting attorney in the Normalinas murder trial, give his point of view as to what happened. We want you to meet Nurse Anne Capute and her attorney, Pat Piscitelli, but first, we'd like to show you a tape of Nurse Anne Capute's last words to the jury.
I love my patients and I love nursing. And I love Normalinas as I have any of those that I've cared for. Since May 6th, when Normalinas was operated on, it was common knowledge amongst the staff that she was a terminal cancer patient. And her screaming and agony only went to prove to the RN who was in charge and myself that it warranted the increased doses that she was medicated with. If you believe the district attorney when he says that I killed Normalinas, and I ask you to bring back a guilty verdict. But if not, if you believe, as I swear to you, that it's true, that I did nothing other than try to help Normalinas with her agony and her suffering, please set me free, return me to my family.
Meet now Nurse Anne Capute, who is with us this morning. Good morning, Anne.
Good morning.
And Pat Piscitelli, Anne's
morning,
attorney.
Anne.
Good morning to both of you. And what we just saw was given as part of an unsworn deposition.
That's right.
Why did you not take the oath to give that testimony?
Actually, there was no need for it because most of my testimony came out through Maureen Costello. Everything that I had said in the interview that she conducted with me on May 22nd, it came out. My attorney saw absolutely no need for me to take the stand and just repeat what had already been said.
All right, Pat, we just heard Ron Pina say that there might have been some sympathy there, that it's very hard to tell what goes on in the jury room, and that might have been a ploy for sympathy. What do you say to that?
I don't know what sympathy was aroused in the jury room. The jurors who were interviewed apparently said something to the contrary. But she acted on my advice. I thought that there was no need for her to testify on the stand because all of her statements, her version was given within 4 days following the death of Norma Linus, and it was given at a time when there was no reason to lie. She let it all hang out, so to speak, with Maureen Costello. She gave a very a lengthy statement as to what had occurred, and I thought that that had the aura of truth about it.
All right, Anne, as an LPN, are you allowed to give drugs?
Certainly.
And you gave the drugs to Norma Linus, am I correct, for 2 days prior to her death, is that right?
He injected drugs,
Injected
yes.
them. Was the attending physician aware of this?
Of course.
What was
he gave the order.
He did give the order.
Yes, he
to do
did.
so. Did he give an order for the exact amount of morphine that she could have?
He gave his order as morphine sulfate, 15 milligrams subcutaneous with no time limit. And that explains it right there.
So when you heard Norma's screams, as you have described them, did you feel compelled to continue to give her morphine?
Certainly that, and also the fact that since the day she was operated on, he had told the operating room staff, the staff on the floor where she was being cared for, that she was terminal. She had 2 to 4 weeks to live, and this was on May 6th. The night he gave the order for the medication, he told us that she had 24 to 48 hours to live.
Did he testify to that? Did he testify and say that?
No, he denied that, Eileen. I asked him that, and he denied that he'd given such an order or made the statement that she, in fact, had 24 to 48 hours to live. Of course, that seemed to belie his many other statements in which he had told the husband that she would not live within the week, and the week ends on Saturday night, May the 17th.
Did you hear Ronald Pena when he was talking with John?
I did. I was watching.
Did you hear him say that he had, did he say 4 experts that were on the stand testifying that it was morphine?
Yes, I heard what he said. I heard the experts he referred to, but each of the experts were like the 4 blind men who felt the side of the elephant, the trunk of the elephant, and so forth. They all had a small part of the elephant and came up with different versions as to what the elephant looked like. You had a pathologist who was not a pharmacologist who testified for them. You had a pharmacologist who wasn't a medical doctor who testified for them. And something else that I heard speak of about Dr. Keeley being dead. Dr. William Bennett, the medical examiner for Bristol County, was very much alive and participated in the autopsy and was there. And I, on more than one occasion, suggested that perhaps Dr. William Bennett should have been called in because he would have cleared up any ambiguities which existed surrounding the autopsy. That was never done by the Commonwealth.
I wondered during the course of this why the hospital didn't take any responsibility for this.
Well, apparently they talked to their attorneys, and in the course of the trial, Maureen Costello did admit upon cross-examination that she told Anne that the interests of the hospital and her may diverge. Those are the exact words I'm quoting, and that she should get her own lawyer. So the hospital apparently went its own way and left Anne to sort of wallow in her own problems.
Anne, there's no doubt that you have been through an incredibly traumatic time the last 7 weeks, perhaps longer. How do you feel about nursing now?
I still think nursing is the greatest profession on the face of the earth.
Did you ever think in your wildest dreams that this could happen to you?
Never. Never. This is something that you read about in school, in the textbooks, and never anything to this magnitude. But you never think it's going to be you.
You were working, obviously, on a terminal floor. Has that?
No,
it was
I
not
was
a
not.
terminal floor.
No.
Had you worked with terminal patients or patients that were very, very ill prior to
Yes, I had.
Mm-hmm. How had you felt in the past about administering drugs?
At Morton Hospital, absolutely no problem. The administration of morphine and other narcotics were increased, were given with no time limit under specific direction of no time limit orders by other doctors. This was not uncommon.
How about your 2 colleagues and the 2 nurses who might perhaps follow in your footsteps and go through what you've been through? Do you have communication with them?
I haven't spoken with them. I did receive an excellent telegram from Judy Foley Friday night, and I was really pleased to hear that.
How about your family and just you personally during the course of this? I mean, how does one hold up during a 7-week-long murder trial?
It's not easy, but you've got to be strong. And if you're going to continue to set an example and for your children to face life and along with the hard times, you can't fold up yourself.
How about your children and the fact that their mother was so charged? How do they deal with this?
We talked about it very openly. it brought us all much closer together. And, of course, there were the bad days.
Did you ever doubt that you would be acquitted?
I must say that when you're sitting up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning by yourself, of course you have doubts. You wonder if you're ever going to see your children married. Are you going to be present for those occasions? Maybe the last child graduating from high school. Are you going to see grandchildren?
How do you feel now about the medical profession, both of you? I mean, does the medical profession enter into any of this? I mean, there are so many questions about the terminally ill, and there's so much talked about the treatment of those that are very sick.
Yeah, that's true, Arlene. What was interesting about this trial was that during the course of it, there were statements made by one of the doctors who testified for the prosecution that they give what are called death with dignity orders and no code orders and do not resuscitate orders, which means that if a patient who is known to be terminal is in the last stage and is dying, no heroic efforts are to be made to save them. And you walk, don't run to the nearest resuscitator. And it raises some interesting ethical questions.
Anne, as I just said, there's been so much printed and talked about euthanasia in the last few years. Had it ever been something that you'd thought about?
Of course, you know, you hear, you read. Euthanasia had never entered into this.
But as a nurse, had you ever thought when you heard the screams of a patient that, gee, you wish that euthanasia might be possible?
No, no. I've never felt that I or any other nurse would consider herself God. No way.
Do you think that this trial will set a precedent in terms of how people are cared for and in terms of prescribed dosage, so that this won't happen again?
It's hard to answer for me. I think Pat will take care of that best.
Well, you know, if I may answer it this way, what bothers me is that perhaps nurses now will be reluctant to administer the medication, which they should, in order to alleviate pain. They'll be somewhat wary about what
All right, how about conversely the doctor and the doctor's orders? Will a doctor be reluctant to say it's open-ended, do what you have to do?
No, I think the doctor will now be obligated to write down the order or sign the order, countersign the order within a short period of time thereafter, within 24 hours or shorter a period of time, as he should have in this case.
How about life now, Anne? What do you expect to do?
Everything's pretty much up in the air.
Can you ever go back to normal now that you become a public figure?
I think so. I think this too will fade away, and life goes on, and I certainly hope to return to normal.
Do you think you'll write a book about this experience?
I don't know. Everything is pretty much up in the air at this point.
There's an office for her to write a book, and that's in the works, hopefully. And we hope, too, that the other two nurses won't be subjected to another trial and be subjected to what she's gone through.
Well, we'll all be waiting with bated breath to see what happens. But we thank you both very much for coming here and discussing a rather difficult situation. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Pat Piscitelli. We'll be right back.
Practical nurse. A year and a half ago, she was charged with the mercy killing of a cancer patient. On Friday, October 23rd, a jury returned the verdict of not guilty. I'm Nancy Merrill. This is People Are Talking. People are talking. Must be a tremendous relief after waiting a year and a half to go to trial on those charges.
It certainly is, and it's very nice to be here, Nancy.
Originally, you were charged with mercy killing. Is that correct?
That's right.
And later, you were charged with straight murder.
Exactly.
Murder in the first degree.
Murder in the first degree.
Could you refresh the minds of our audience and myself of what facts led up to this trial?
This is a case where I was caring for a terminal cancer patient, Normalinus, and during the course of caring for her, her doctor informed us right after surgery that she was definitely terminal. She had only a limited time to live, anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. 2 nights prior to her death, on the 16th of May, he came in. He gave a verbal order to the RN in charge to give her morphine, change her medication. She was receiving oral morphine, which she could no longer swallow at that point. Give it to her 15 milligrams subcutaneously. That's by injection, with no time limit. Just make her comfortable. And he was in extreme hurry to get out of there. And that's essentially where we went from there. I did make her as comfortable as I could, because this was a lady that was terminal. She was in excruciating pain. She had been in agony and screaming for some time. I saw no reason where the order was given, and which gave us discretion not to give her the medication that I did.
This was a verbal order. In the past, had doctors always issued you verbal orders as well that you followed?
Yes, it had, you know.
So this was not an unusual procedure?
Definitely not. And it was not unusual to have no time limit orders.
Were other nurses involved in administering morphine to her?
Yes.
Now, she died obviously several days thereafter.
She died 2 days thereafter.
All right. Did you have any idea at that time that you were going to be charged with a mercy killing? What happened?
Absolutely not. That thought never entered into my head. In fact, I had no idea that there was anything unusual about normaliness, as there had been anything unusual about other terminal cancer patients, and the same type of orders that we had acted upon with them.
So you went about your business.
Of course.
And then you were notified by whom that you were charges were brought against you?
The first inkling I had was the evening of May 22nd, when I was called down to the office of the administrator of nursing, Maureen Costello, and that was at 10:30 at night. I was very fearful because the clinical coordinator, who was Lorraine Hickey at that time, came up to get me, wouldn't tell me why I was going to the office of Maureen Costello.
You had no inkling it had to do with this particular
Absolutely none. And I just couldn't fathom why at this time of night, an hour before my shift is due to end, for what possible reason could I be called into Maureen Costello's office?
What did she say to you?
Maureen Costello has always been one of the most gracious persons I've ever known. She also has always struck me as being, I've been in awe of her, absolute awe of her. This was like being called into the office of God. And her questions pertain to what went on. She went through item after item of what kind of medications and the frequency of the medications that
Did you know what she was leading up to?
I had no idea, and I'm thinking, at first, I was terribly scared when I went in there, but it was like tremendous relief. Oh, it's just, maybe I didn't do my nursing notes right or something.
Did she finally, at the end of this conversation, tell you that you were being charged with mercy killing?
Absolutely not. In fact, the only information I had at that point was that I was being put on suspension for 3 days until such time as she conducted a more thorough investigation.
And how many days thereafter were you notified that you were being charged with a mercy killing?
I can't give it to you in days. It was somewhere around the 1st of June that I was officially fired, and maybe a day or two prior to that, I had been informed over the telephone that the results of the investigation had been turned over to the district attorney.
And he was filing charges against you.
Right.
What a shock for this to happen to you. We have a piece of videotape of the prosecuting attorney speaking to the jury about you. Let's take a look at this.
Okay.
Dr. Mary, the opportunity to be treated was for normaliness to decide. That's who had the option, normaliness. And what I'm suggesting to you is that normaliness was not given the opportunity to decide, because the woman sitting here as a defendant took whatever hope, future, or opportunity to decide that normaliness had away from her on the evening of May 18th. Whatever flicker of hope, whatever belief that there's a possibility there's a cancer treatment, whatever belief that something could have been done for normaliness, whatever belief that she could have seen her children again, gone home, been treated with appropriate care, radiation treatment and other treatment was taken away by the defendant.
How does that feel to see that tape again and sort of relive what happened in the courtroom?
Brings back a lot of the horror of it. My feelings are really terrible about that, having to sit there and not really being able to say anything, seeing the district attorney point at me, accuse me of robbing Norma Linus of the bright future, where I felt that was just wholly ridiculous because he never saw the agony and the suffering she was in. And in my opinion and in the nursing staff opinion, there was no bright future.
You know, many cultures talk about suffering as a way of building up your character, of having backbone, and a lot of religions teach that suffering is a way of purifying the soul. As a nurse dealing with terminal patients, how do you view suffering?
In this day and age, I see absolutely no need for anyone to suffer, and especially if a doctor has already said that you've got 12 to 24 to 48 hours to live. Why should you have to go out in such suffering and agony? There's no need of that.
What are your feelings in an overall view of euthanasia and those of certainly working with terminal patients and seeing them on a very intimate level, whereas doctors come in and out of the day, but you as a nurse see them day in, day out for many more hours, deal with their pain much more intensely. Have you had conversations with other nurses about euthanasia, the philosophy behind it?
Not really. I've never really gotten into euthanasia. I don't consider myself, or ever want to put myself in the position that I'm God and I decide who's going to be here and who isn't. And I don't consider Norma Linus a case of euthanasia.
Why did you decide to become a nurse?
Something I've wanted ever since I was extremely young. It's been my lifelong ambition.
And when did you train to be a nurse? At what age?
I was around 40 years old when I first had the opportunity to go into...
That's very late to be getting into a profession.
Yes, it is.
Why couldn't you get into it earlier?
Family, finances, timing.
What did you see yourself in as a role of a nurse? What were your responsibilities, your obligations?
I think I've always seen myself as the patient's advocate.
If you had had more time, you're an LPN, would you have gone for the RN?
Definitely. Definitely. My only reservation on that was, I think RNs, unfortunately, lose a lot of the patient contact, and I never wanted to lose patient contact.
Waiting a year and a half for a trial, having been, the media having accused you of murder, that is, the media reporting what the district attorney said, must have had a profound effect on your husband, and you have 7 children.
Yes.
What were some of the things that were going on?
It was just, I can only say it was a horrendous nightmare. It was unbelievable. It was like, it's not happening to me, but you know it is, and you have to start at some point trying to deal with the possible reality of what could happen.
And what could have happened?
I could have ended up spending the rest of my life in jail.
And you lived with this for a year and a half till the verdict came.
Exactly.
I'm curious to know how the staff at the hospital treated you. You were suspended.
Mm-hmm.
Did any of them call you up? Did any of them come to their aid, or did they stay as far away from you as possible?
I had absolutely no contact with any of the nursing staff that was there at the hospital. I had heard that the word came down from administration positions that they weren't to have contact with myself or the other 2 nurses that had been indicted.
When you were treating Norma Linus, you said she was in terrible pain and taking huge doses of morphine. Was she ever conscious enough to say anything to you?
Always asking for medication. I remember at one point her crying out, asking why was she suffering like this? What had she possibly done that God was letting her suffer like this?
Did she ever ask you to help her end her misery?
No, never.
Did any members of her family ever ask you?
Certainly not. Absolutely not.
We'll take a break. We'll be back in a few moments. Stay with us. Pat Piscitelli is joining us now. You're Anne's lawyer.
Yes.
You can fill us in on some of the legal background. In fact, Anne was charged with 2 separate counts. What was the first one?
Well, she was charged with first-degree murder, Nancy, and she was also charged with illegally dispensing a narcotic drug.
That was the second count?
Yes, that was. And that carried a 10-year state prison term as well. Quite a serious charge.
Now, had Anne said she knows what would have happened had she been found guilty in the first degree, there are varying degrees of guilt. Was there any plea bargaining involved? Did anyone approach you?
There was absolutely no plea bargaining whatsoever because we never discussed her as being other than totally innocent, so there was no need to. Yes, murder does encompass several things, Nancy. What it does is you can be found guilty of first-degree murder, which carries a mandatory life imprisonment without any parole, unless you're pardoned by the governor. Secondly, you could be found guilty of a second-degree murder, which means that you could get mandatory life imprisonment and eligibility for parole in 15 years. Or you could be found guilty of manslaughter, which carries a 20-year maximum imprisonment. And our position was that because the DA had been constantly accusing her of being a murderess and this heinous, horrible person, that we wanted no in-betweens. We said either she is that person or she's not guilty, as we said was the case.
So you mean, Anne, after consulting with Pat, you decided it would be all or nothing?
No, that was my position prior to consulting with Pat. I had been very strong on that. I just felt that I wasn't a little guilty. I either had to be all the way guilty in that jury's mind, or I was guilty of nothing, as I really felt I was.
What she didn't answer is something unusual. In fact, most lawyers would think they were nuts if they were to ask a jury to either go the maximum penalty or nothing, because you always like to think that if they think she's guilty of murder, they may compromise and commit the lesser offense of manslaughter, and you might be able to convince the judge that no time should be given to her were she to be convicted. But in this case, I did something totally contrary to what any defense attorney would do, and suggested to the jury, as well as the judge initially, that number one, he not charge the jury on manslaughter, and number two, I asked the jury not to compromise this verdict, and either go for broke. Either she is or she isn't, and we felt she wasn't guilty of anything, and the jury thought that way too.
Well, there's a very impassioned plea that we have a piece of videotape on, and can you kind of set this up for us? It wasn't just before the jury went in to make the decision, was it?
No. This was done...
Seems very unusual, Pat.
It is now, because it used to be done, it was quite prevalent several years ago. It was done immediately following the arguments by both counsel. I went first, and then the DA argued, and then immediately following that, she made her unsworn statement to the jury. And that's a throwback, Nancy, to the old days when actually the death penalty was in vogue. It's since been actually declared unconstitutional in Massachusetts now. But it's a throwback to those days when, out of a feeling for the humanity of man to man, they allowed a person on trial for his or her life to make an unsworn statement to the jury, consisting of 2 or 3 minutes, 4 minutes, or whatever time necessary.
So that the jury could show mercy if they so chose.
Yes, that's exactly what it was,
That's rather an irony, isn't it, in that you were up for a mercy killing, and yet they had to show mercy to you. Let's take a look at this clip.
District Attorney has accused me of willfully and intentionally killing Norma Linus. Not only here, but in the media, and for weeks, you've been hearing it. I and my children have been hearing it for a year and a half now. And I stand before you today and I beg of you only one thing. If you believe the District Attorney when he says that I killed Norma Linus, and I ask you to bring back a guilty verdict. But if not, if you believe, as I swear to you, that it's true, that I did nothing other than try to help Norma Linus with her agony and her suffering, then please set me free, return me to my family. Thank you for listening.
Pat, do you think that Anne's statement swayed the jury at all, or do you think the facts were so clear that they stood on the facts when they made their decision?
I think it was a combination of both, Nancy. I think that her statement had an impact. It had to have had an impact because it was a very emotionally draining moment. It brought tears to my eyes, and when that happens, then you know it's got to have an impact. I think it certainly did, but I think the combination of the fact that the case should never have been brought in the first place.
Well, let's go back to how it actually did get brought. Anne didn't even know about this, and she was called into Mrs. Costello's office.
That's right.
Who informed Miss Costello that there was a possibility of a mercy killing involved?
Well, it was a nurse who was an LPN, as a matter of fact, who apparently looked at some records and thought there might have been too much medication for reasons best known to her, although it had been done constantly at Moore Hospital. And she brought it to the attention of her administrator or clinical nursing supervisor, who in turn talked to Maureen Costello, who then took it upon herself to conduct an investigation. And it appeared to be nothing more than an administrative investigation. What then developed is I guess they talked to their attorneys, and their attorney said, well, why don't we bring this to the attention of the DA because of the amount involved. I don't think they really knew what had been done and that it was common practice to administer large amounts of morphine to terminal patients. It was that simple.
When Miss Costello spoke to you, you made some statements to her, which were later brought out in the trial. What were they?
I think the statements were something to the effect that I must have killed her. I'd given her enough to kill an elephant, things of that sort.
But these statements, Nancy, were made, and Mrs. Costello admitted this on the stand when we cross-examined her, that they appear to have been made as an afterthought, after the fact, after the constant prodding and interrogation by Mrs. Costello and two other people who were there late at night, that she said, my God, I must have killed her based upon what you're saying to me.
Wait a minute, this sounds almost a bit like a harassing situation. Was she harassing you?
I can't say that she was harassing me, but you've got to realize that I was in such awe of this lady, right? Such respect for her and all, that as she went through the chart and kept saying to me as she got closer to the end, well now, what is it that you think you've done here? I said, well, I guess I must have killed her. Just what type, just what amount of medication do you think could do to a patient like this? I guess at that point is when I made the statement, I guess it was enough to kill an elephant.
Was this admissible evidence, Pat? It was used in the trial, but she didn't have a lawyer with her at the time.
Well, yes, it was admissible, and secondly, she need not have had a lawyer at the time. But that's exactly what made it extremely credible, and to have had her make these statements at a time when she had no need to lie or put on in any way. And what she said was, again, an afterthought or an after-the-fact impression that she got after being prodded by mine.
Who actually brought this suit? Was it the hospital? Took it to the attention of the DA? Were Norma's relatives involved in this? Did they sue you?
No.
No, it was the hospital which brought it to the attention of the DA, and the DA in turn then sought exhumation of the body, and they in turn then decided to bring an indictment for murder. It's that simple.
Now, we're talking about two charges here. There was a possibility, and I know it was brought up in the trial, that there's a drug called, is it Narcan, that can be administered?
That's right, yes.
Explain to me what it's used for.
It's an antidote for any sort of opium or any sort of overdose, drug overdose. And it immediately reverses the effects of that overdose. And it would have brought the patient back, improved her blood pressure, her respirations, etc. It also would have brought her fully back to the high level of pain that she was suffering, because it would have eliminated all the sedating effects of the morphine.
At any time when you were caring for her, did you think she was suffering from morphine poisoning?
Definitely not.
If you had thought she was, would you have administered this drug?
No.
Why not?
No. I guess it's simply that the woman was terminal. We all knew she was terminal. She was never comatose, certainly not while I was taking care of her. And she was crying and screaming at times just in pure agony.
Can any of us understand what it is like to deal with a terminal patient who hasn't been there like you have?
I don't know.
I can't imagine, Nancy. It's difficult for me to put myself in that position, really. Unless you're there, how can one sense the pain, excruciating pain? The nurse's notes indicated that many nurses observed her to be writhing in agony. The words excruciating pain were commonplace, screaming if you touched her hair or attempted to turn her. And the doctor, remember, 2 days before she died, had made the statement that she would she had no more than 24 to 48 hours to live. And he had made many other statements that same week to the husband of Mrs. Linus, to the effect that she would not live out the week. And the week ended on Saturday at midnight.
It's a tremendous burden to be taking care of terminally ill patients. We'll be right back after these messages. Flip of the actual verdict when it came in on October 23rd. Let's take a look at it now.
Mr. Foreman, what say you on indictment 6828, charging the defendant Anne Capute with murder? How do you find the defendant, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
What say you, Mr. Foreman, on indictment 6829, charging the defendant Anne Capute with unlawful dispensing of a controlled substance class B? How do you find the defendant, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
You know, Anne, we were doing a live show here in the studio last Friday, and we broke away to the news, and we had a very, very large audience. And when both verdicts came back, the audience cheered. How do you feel about that? I understand people were cheering in the courtroom.
That's right. I'm just been overwhelmed with the outpouring of congratulations and flowers and just the public support. It's just been wonderful, and it's had me really on cloud nine.
But what about your future? Will you ever be able to practice nursing again, do you think?
It's hard to really comprehend at this point. I feel that I've been stigmatized. I'm afraid at this moment maybe the nursing profession may be afraid to hire me. Maybe they're going to be looking over my shoulders. This is a decision that I'm going to have to make a little bit down the line.
Awkward at best.
You know, Pat, is there any chance that she has charges here, grounds for a defamation or damage suit against the district attorney's office?
Well, let's say that it's not something which has not crossed my mind, but nothing is contemplated at present. We are seeking to restore all her back pay, which was taken away from her from the hospital, by the hospital rather, and we are going to seek her legal fees from the hospital as well, because all the other nurses were supplied with lawyers as well as some doctors, I understand, by the hospital.
How much did this case cost the state to prosecute her?
Well, I've estimated upwards of $500,000, and that may be disputed by the DA's office, but when you look at it in terms of all the preparation, investigation, the court time, the personnel time, the multiple thousands of man-hours involved, I think my estimate may be quite conservative.
How much of effect, Anne, do you think this is going to have on the nursing profession in this country?
I think it's going to make them extremely careful in the future. I know it certainly would myself. I think nurses may tend to really be afraid.
This is possible for nurse Anne Capute. Only Anne Capute can open house, and with her is her attorney, Pat Piscitelli. Norma, Anne, before we get to the question about how the trial has affected your life since the acquittal, we'd like to ask you, Attorney Piscitelli, if you could kind of review the case for us. Tell us the charges and the outcome.
Well, Jan, she's indicted on a first-degree murder charge, and the trial lasted some 6 or 7 weeks, and the allegation was that she had supposedly given an overdose of morphine to a patient. Well, of course, the patient had been suffering excruciating pain because she had been suffering from a terminal cancer illness. And the upshot was that when it came to the attention of the nursing personnel, that is the head of the nursing personnel, it was brought to the attention of the district attorney, who then proceeded to seek an indictment, which we thought was unnecessary, should never have been brought, and was a waste of the Commonwealth's money.
But she was acquitted.
Yes, she was acquitted on October 23rd of
Was
last
there
year.
a turning point in the trial?
I like to think that when they indicted her, that was the biggest turning point, and never should have been brought in the first place. But there was, I think one of the highlights was when the doctor who had supposedly given the order, which Anne and another nurse had indicated was given as to the amount of morphine to be administered. When he testified, or following his cross-examination, I think that seemed to change things.
It's been 6 months now, and I think even you referred to it since Mount Helen eruption, and it's been a long time for you. How has it been for you, getting a job and getting back to the normal routine of life?
Life will probably never be the same again. It's been horrendous getting a job. Right now I am working on an on-call basis. I'm on call 24 hours a day. It's been very tough. People are afraid. Hospitals are afraid.
Afraid of what?
They tell me things like they're afraid that if they hire me, what will be the reaction of patients? What will be the reaction of patients' families? Will they lose business? There's just a big fear out there.
And what about your family? Did it affect them? Has it changed their lives at all?
Of course, it was horrendous on the family right up until the day I was acquitted. That was a big highlight for them, of course. Life will never be the same for them either. The kids are almost getting used to being recognized everywhere, no matter where we go, whether it's grocery shopping or to Rhode Island, that I've taken a couple of the kids for concerts, for things that they wanted to see, we're recognized.
Have you had to make major changes in your lifestyle because of that recognition factor?
I'm trying not to. The biggest thing is was in the employment line, and slowly but surely, hopefully I'll get back.
What does it do to your self-image personally when someone says to you, I can't hire you because I'm afraid?
I can understand that. I can understand their fears. Sometimes I'll say to myself, that's unfair. I've already been through the trial, I've been acquitted, and it's unfair to keep my life in limbo, not let me go on.
Have you ever thought maybe of just getting out of nursing and just say, who needs this anymore? I might as well find... No? You still want to do it?
Yes, I do.
I had suggested that to her one time, Frank. I thought that it would be very difficult for her to continue her career, and I thought it would have been as difficult to ever go back to the hospital in question, Morton Hospital, because of the emotional trauma she suffered and all the notoriety.
How does this, in this litigious society we're in, this brings up a whole big point about the impact of nurses and doctors and hospitals about being afraid of malpractice suits or this kind of thing that happened to you. Is this something that both of you can talk about?
I know I hear a lot, and I've seen a lot firsthand where nurses won't medicate. They're afraid to medicate. They insist on medication orders for any sort of narcotics to be written, signed, much more so than ever before.
So it has had an impact on the procedures at Morton Hospital and others, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure that's the case, Jan. I think this was one of the problems in Anne's case, that the fact that the doctor had not countersigned the narcotics order, which he should have done within 24 hours or reasonable time thereafter.
I'm sure this speaks, too, about the relationships between the nurses and doctors, right?
Makes them much more queasy, I'm sure. I think nurses are reluctant to administer without getting orders confirmed.
Speaking of the nurses that you worked with at Morton and others in general, what has your relationship been with them during and since the trial? Have you felt that they've been supportive, or have they too shied away from getting involved?
Nurses at Morton Hospital have never contacted me personally or phone calls. I did receive a card of congratulations from a small group at Morton that was mostly recovery room and some of the other staff. From the floor that I was assigned to and worked on for a year and a half, not one word.
Would you want to go back there?
No, it would be very uncomfortable, not only for them, but for me, of course.
Let's go back for just a second to the time when you worked there. If you got a job that's similar to the job you had at that point, would you do the same thing that you did over again, or would you too be more cautious in the future?
The only thing I would change is I'd make sure that my order was signed.
You would make demands on the doctor as well?
Definitely.
What about your future? Where do you see this leading?
I don't know. I really don't know.
You say that it's difficult, though, to get a job.
It certainly is.
And you don't want to get out of nursing.
No.
You don't want to just go back to being just a housewife, work at home, and you want a job.
That's right.
And you don't want to explore another avenue, huh?
Not right now. Maybe in the future that'll change, but right now, nursing is something I wanted all my life, and I'm going to fight to stay in it.
Do you think there's any possibility there might be a book or something? Usually when there's a celebrated case, like people write a book or something along these lines. Is this something that maybe you might consider?
Pat can answer that best.
That's in the works now, Frank. We do have a New York agent working on it, and we expect to have a publisher secured very shortly, and hopefully that will come about within 9 months to a year.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you both for being so open and bringing us up to date and follow-up of a very celebrated case here in the Commonwealth.
And good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
Sunday Open House has a lot going for it this morning, and I'm glad you joined us on a rainy Sunday. We got a lot of things going on.
Stay in and watch us, right?
We're going to continue our series on critics. Today, we're going to look at food critics. And
named Anne Capute. Now, we saw Anne Capute on TV almost every night for several weeks last fall while she was on trial for giving an overdose of morphine. Found innocent, but I-Team reporters Jim Taracani and Gary Circa have found some new information concerning Mrs. Capute's background. And I-Team reporter Jim Taracani is here with more on that story. Jim?
Well, Doug, our I-Team investigation shows that Anne Capute is apparently an assumed name. And the reason for the assumed name has a lot to do with how Mrs. Capute got her nursing license. Most of us know this woman as Anne L. Capute, but her real name is Mary Patricia Capute. Her maiden name, Mary Patricia LaRue. So why does she call herself Anne? It all started here at the old Jamaica Plain High School in Boston. Mary Patricia LaRue, who now calls herself Anne Louise Capute, dropped out of school when she was 16 years old. She never received a high school diploma. Later on in her life, she decided to become a nurse. But in order to get into nursing school under Massachusetts law, she needed a high school diploma. In order to do that, our investigation shows that she had to change her first and middle names from Mary Patricia to Anne Louise. The reason? The reason is Capute apparently used the high school records of a friend to get into nursing school. Her friend's maiden name is Anne Louise Wall, a graduate of Mission High School in Boston. Our Newswatch 10 investigation shows that Capute, on her application for a nursing license in the state of Massachusetts, used the maiden name of Wall. She signed the application under penalty of perjury if she lied, Anne L. Capute. But I-Team reporter Gary Circa checked over some documents on file at offices in Plimpton and Plymouth, Massachusetts. He found that property records and voting records are signed by a Mary P. Capute. One was signed as recently as January 9th, 1981. Anne L. Wall, Capute's friend, resides here in Pembroke, Massachusetts. Her married name is Anne L. Buckus. She refused to talk to us and said only, quote, "I have no comment," when we informed her about what Mary Capute did. Sources tell us, however, that Anne L. Wall apparently did not know that Capute used Wall's high school records and diploma to get into the Lemuel Shattuck Hospital School of Practical Nursing. The bottom line to this complicated story is this. Anne L. Capute, whose real name is Mary P. Capute, apparently obtained a friend's high school diploma under false pretenses in order to get into nursing school. She apparently used a false name on her application to the state of Massachusetts. And to this day, she holds a nursing license in the Bay State, a license made out to one Anne L. Capute, whose real name is Mary, the same Mary who never got her high school diploma at Jamaica Plain School in Boston. Doug?
Has she had any comment about this?
We have not been able to reach Anne Capute. We did talk to her attorney, P.J. Piscitelli, late this afternoon, and he said he had no comment on the story.
Okay. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Anthony Ratchford's...
The report that Anne Capute lied to get into nursing school. In sports, the Paw Sox finally got to play. Chris will have highlights.
Into the background of nurse Anne Capute. There were some other developments in connection with our story, and I-Team reporter Jim Taracani has details for us.
On Monday, we reported that Capute apparently used a friend's high school record to get into nursing school, and she used her friend's name on her license application to the state of Massachusetts. Today, the administrator for Morton Hospital, where Anne Capute had worked, said he doesn't know if the hospital will take legal action against Capute. I-Team reporter Gary Circa asked the administrator if the recent out-of-court settlement that was made with Capute might be in jeopardy.
I think that's certainly an option which we will consider. Whether it will come to pass, we don't know at this time, but that is certainly an option we may consider.
Ronald Pina, the district attorney in Bristol County, says the new information about Capute could mean that civil action might be taken by the family of Norma Linus.
I think someone who's continually been forgotten in this whole situation, as time has gone on, have been the Linuses and the deceased woman and her family. And they have an interest in all of this right now.
A member of the Linus family told Newswatch 10 today that they have not decided on whether to take legal action against Mrs. Capute. Jim Taracani, Newswatch 10.
Of 5 men from Holbrook convicted of rape. Eyewitness newsman Bill Shields says the whole issue centers on the law of jeopardy. Bill?
Well, all of this is very complicated legal maneuvers, but it centers on that issue of double jeopardy. Now, basically, back in January of 1980, these 5 young men, along with 2 others now, were charged with raping and beating a 39-year-old woman. The 5 young men were convicted of that, but then the judge, when he convicted them, sentenced them to simply probation plus $500. The public was outraged. He tried to re-sentence them.
Well, it means our client will be at home tonight
I dare say that they probably would be on the road to Walpole if they hadn't issued the stay. So it means that in the short run. In the long run, it means that we have a chance now of ultimately prevailing on the double jeopardy claim and preventing any resentencing.
That was defense attorney Steve Rones. Now, basically what I was saying was Judge Abrams one time made the ruling of probation. Then with the public outcry, he resentenced them to the original charge of almost 10 years in prison. That, according to defense attorneys, amounts to double jeopardy. So that defense attorney you just heard from, Steve Rones, asked the Supreme Court about it. They have their own doubts about it, and now either the Supreme Court can rule on it, Kate, or it can actually come back to Norfolk Superior Court.
Do you have any idea which will happen, Bill?
Right now, I would be willing to bet that it would come back to Norfolk for a disposition there. However, I will say I'm very hesitant to second-guess the courts.
At this point, does it look like they will eventually be going to jail or be on probation?
That's very hard to answer, Kate. It could go either way. This double jeopardy is a very sticky issue. The Supreme Court might want to handle it themselves and take it completely out of the state of Massachusetts, in which case it would probably be some sort of landmark decision.
Okay, thank you very much.
Reporter Bill Shields says outrage from the public forced the Massachusetts judge to change his mind, and that's where the Supreme Court stepped in.
The motion is denied.
It was just after 10:30 this morning, and Norfolk Superior Court Judge Donahue was about to re-sentence 5 Holbrook men for the crime of rape. As defense attorneys argued, the defendants sat and nervously listened to all the legal rhetoric. Parents fought back tears. But then the phone call from the United States Supreme Court stopping it all.
This does not mean that the United States Supreme Court has stayed these proceedings as a final matter.
Still, the ruling meant there would be no jail for the 5 young men convicted of rape, at least not today. The defense attorney who petitioned the Supreme Court for a stay of sentencing was elated over Justice Brennan's decision.
Well, it means our client will be at home tonight. I dare say that they probably would be on the road to Walpole if they hadn't issued the stay.
It all started on a January night in 1980 at this bar in Holbrook. The 5 young men left here with 39-year-old Judy Myers and drove a short distance to a secluded wooded area. There, the 39-year-old former beauty queen was raped and then beaten. She was left unconscious in 20-degree weather. The following October, Judge Herbert Abrams sentenced each of the 5 men to 2 years probation. The public was outraged, even as they are today.
I don't think they should have went free, by all means.
I think rape's a pretty bad crime, and I think there should be stiffer punishments than there is for it right now.
When the judge heard the public outcry, he re-sentenced the 5 men, and this time they would go to jail. But defense attorneys cried double jeopardy, and now the highest court in the nation seems to have doubts also. So this complicated series of legal maneuvers will continue until July 15th, or possibly even as late as October. But whichever the date, the judge will make a ruling on whether or not the 5 young men from Holbrook will remain on probation or go to prison. Bill Shields, TV4 Eyewitness News, Dedham.
However, it is possible that the case will not even return to Massachusetts. The U.S. Supreme Court has the power to hand down a decision if it wants to. John?
In another case of rape, the state Supreme Court has upheld the convictions of 3 doctors charged with raping a nurse at a Rockport beach house. Doctors Arif Hussain, Eugene Sherry, and Alan Lefkowitz now face 6 months in Walpole State Prison. The charge is unaggravated rape. A hearing will be held next week to determine if the 3 can remain free while they appeal the convictions in the federal courts. Another sex scandal is rocking the nation's capital tonight. The Justice Department is investigating reports
over allegations of a sex and drug scandal on the Hill. He told reporters today, "I was flabbergasted. It's really a depressing thing. The only thing we can do is pursue it." And the House Ethics Committee ordered its own probe of the case. Other senators joined the chorus of calls for an internal investigation of its own members.
But we ought to follow the facts wherever they lead, and wherever the chips fall, so be it, but we ought to move promptly on it.
Here on Capitol Hill today, pages tried to dodge the media, but some admitted the scandal did have some truth to it.
A few perverted people, but I mean, that's their own business, and
do you know?
It's not widely spread. No.
A month month ago, House Speaker Tip O'Neill's page, Polly Patton, talked quite frankly with us about the pressures of life.
A then 38-year-old woman. Lawyers for the men concede the Supreme Court justices' quick action probably kept their clients out of prison.
I dare say that they probably would be on the road to Walpole if they hadn't issued the stay, so it means that in the short run.
The Attorney General's office is fighting against a permanent stay, saying the men should first be resentenced.
Any action by the federal court at this stage, I would suggest, would be totally premature because we don't know the outcome of that resentencing hearing.
A hearing on sentencing has been scheduled in this court for July 15th. But if the U.S. Supreme Court decides to put the case on its dockets, this hearing will be canceled, and it won't be heard in Washington until sometime after October. I'm Lynn Vaughn, News 7 in Dedham.
And the Supreme Court is expected to decide whether the state court may resentence the 5 men on July 14th. 3 doctors face jail tonight after the state Supreme Court shot down an appeal to overturn their rape conviction. Eugene Sherry.
Simply overturn a decision you've made by the number of placard-bearing people who march outside of a courthouse. That, to me, is not justice.
Today's stay does not necessarily mean that the full U.S. Supreme Court will hear this gang rape case. Those justices actually hear only a small fraction of the number of cases that are appealed to them. However, given the central constitutional issue of double jeopardy, and given the public outcry that occurred after the first sentence was handed down, one can well imagine that this is one of the cases that the justices will choose to hear. In Dedham, Kirby Perkins, News Center 5.
Another celebrated Massachusetts case may also wind up in the U.S. Supreme Court. Lawyers for 3 doctors found guilty of raping a nurse are taking their appeal to the nation's highest court after the state Supreme Court today upheld the convictions. The state court upheld 1 count of unaggravated rape each against Drs. Arif Hussein, Eugene Sherry, and Alan Lefkowitz. The rape allegedly took place in a Rockport beach house after a party in Boston attended by the 3 doctors and the nurse. Those doctors face 6 months in jail if the convictions stand. Natalie?
David Coleman, the man who admitted murdering a Boston cabbie after he was acquitted of that crime, today was sentenced to life in prison for an unrelated crime. This week, a jury found Coleman guilty of armed robbery, but as Jack Borden reports, the murder confession played a part in the harsh sentencing.
The Suffolk County DA pressed for 2 consecutive life sentences and a concurrent life term for the armed robberies. The murder could only be cited as illustrating the defendant's character. Assistant DA Connolly read from the record of Coleman's confession.
Now will you answer the question, please? I killed him. In cold blood, I would say yes.
Coleman's attorney, Roger Witkin, asked Judge John Murphy to forego vindictiveness.
No man today is more despised than David Coleman. How His Honor treats David Coleman will be the measure of our civilization insofar as this Commonwealth is concerned.
Judge Murphy explained the basis for his sentencing decision.
That all of these victims in these cases were returning to their homes after their day's work, and all 3 were assaulted on the street, and they had a cocked handgun thrust in their face.
Then came the sentence, 3 concurrent life terms.
On those indictments now sentences you to be in prison in the Massachusetts Correctional Institution at Walpole for and during the term of your natural life. These sentences to be served concurrent with the sentence imposed on indictment 038.
From his own lips, he's a cold-blooded killer. And I think that's the type of individual that should be in prison for life.
There are other charges such as perjury that Coleman can be tried for, and these can add to his time in prison beyond possible parole after 15 years. Coleman showed little emotion as he was led away to Walpole. Jack Borden, News Center 5 in Boston.
Coming up, action today by the Boston Retirement Board on the Robert Toomey case, and later in this broadcast on Checkpoint, Pam Cross explores the NAACP's drive to bring out the minority vote and make that vote work for minorities. Tonight's Checkpoint report. Stay with us.
Right now, Purity's having a great cookout sale to help you discover the best vacation spot on the map, your own backyard. We're making backyard barbecues more affordable.
With delicious, tender USDA choice London broiled steak, only $1.69 a pound. $1.69 a pound. It's perfect for a barbecue. And look at this, sweet, red, ripe, juicy watermelon, only 11 cents a pound.
That's just a sample of the terrific cookout values you'll find at Purity, your basic value store.
Eastern Airlines announces pint-sized fares to Florida.
Which is $49 round trip, and you can see dolphins or killer whales and kids flying.
Which may be in relation to this particular case, so I had better make some determination as to what's going on down there before we proceed further here.
When Superior Court Judge Roger Donahue returned to the courtroom today, it was to announce that there would be no resentencing today of 5 young men convicted of the gang rape of a woman in 1980. Last October, the 5 pleaded guilty to the rape, were given suspended sentences and $500 fines. The public uproar at the time of the light sentences prompted the judge to reverse himself and hand out 3 to 5 year terms at Walpole. That set off another howl from defense attorneys. They said resentencing their clients amounted to double jeopardy. And today, a United States Supreme Court judge said the youths cannot be resentenced until he has had a chance to hear the state side of the case. With us tonight is defense attorney Pat Piscitelli, who is standing by live in downtown Boston. Pat, I guess the first question is, does double jeopardy apply to retrial or to resentencing as well?
Well, Chad, we think it applies to both, and that was the issue which was raised in the matter coming up for the court today.
Do you think that might be perhaps the reason the Supreme Court agreed, or at least the single justice agreed to delay sentencing, because there is the constitutional issue here of just exactly what is meant by double jeopardy?
Well, I think that if a sentence is to be increased and subjecting a person to a greater sentence than he had been given originally, why certainly that does place him in jeopardy. And that's exactly what was done in this case. They sought to increase the sentence which was given. Initially it was a suspended sentence, and they sought to give a sentence of commitment, 3 to 5 to Walpole.
Pat, does this thing strike at the heart of the plea bargaining issue, which is, you know, at the heart of so much court action in Massachusetts?
Well, I think it makes it very difficult, Chet, because no sentence will now be final if, in fact, a judge can, within 60 days after imposition of a sentence, revise it because he feels the interests of justice require it. If there's no finality, it's going to be very difficult to engage in valid plea bargaining, yes.
But this isn't the first time a sentence has been changed. Usually they're reduced, but certainly sentences are changed often in Massachusetts and elsewhere.
Well, that's correct. In this case, it was moved upward, which caused the problem of the double jeopardy. And by the way, Chet, it was Steve Rones, one of the attorneys for the co-defendants, who flew down to Washington yesterday and filed the application to stay the SJC's order, which brought this about today. I want to give him the credit.
What happens now? I mean, is there a likelihood that the full bench might review it? This is an initial step. Now, the sentencing has been delayed until July 15th. But exactly what will happen now as you understand it, Pat, in this case?
Well, as of July 8th, the Attorney General's office must respond to the application which was filed with the Supreme Court. And following that, the Supreme Court, that is Justice Brennan, will determine whether or not there is sufficient merit for the state to continue in effect. If he does so, then it will become a permanent interlocutory order, and we will then file a certiorari, which is a way of testing the legality of the sentence, which was, or the resentencing procedure.
Pat Piscitelli, thank you for being with us. Mr. Piscitelli is the attorney for one of the men who is accused of the 5, who was accused of the rape of a former beauty queen in Holbrook back in 1980. Their sentence was stayed today by order of a single justice of the United States Supreme Court. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Desperately to find some peace of mind and hopefully restore some semblance of order to my life.
With that, Anne Capute surrendered her last right to work in the state of Massachusetts as a practical nurse. Quote, "What I love to do best, caring for the sick." Since May of 1980, she has been in and out of court in the highly publicized Fall River murder trial, the so-called Angel of Mercy case, a nurse accused of killing cancer patient Norma Linus with overdoses of morphine. Capute was acquitted of those charges, but during the trial, the media caught wind of another story, that Capute had falsified her high school records in order to get into nursing school. Admitting that today before the Board of Nursing's complaint committee, Capute gave up, opting not to endure the 2 weeks or so of testimony before that governing body, wanting instead to start fresh.
I'm comfortable. I've been living with this name my other identity now for several years. I'm comfortable with it.
Do you want to be an RN, or are you just going to try to be an LPN again?
I might go and be a brain surgeon.
You said you might move out of state or possibly out of the country.
Definitely.
You're definitely going to move?
Yes.
What, too much notoriety here?
Much too much pressure.
What does that do for your family and friends? Isn't that tough?
Well, who said life was easy?
Reaction from the hospital where she worked was quiet. Her former administrator relieved somewhat that another phase of this blemish on Morton Hospital is behind them.
Certainly, I'm pleased that a number of our personnel who were subpoenaed to appear before the Board of Registration will not have to undergo additional questioning and be involved in rehashing the situation all over again.
But the hospital itself has not heard the last from the family of Norma Linus. Already the legal wheels are in motion to bring civil suit charging wrongful death.
Our opinion is that had Norma Linus been rendered good medical care, that she'd be alive today. She went in with, we believe, treatable cancer, and we think she should have been treated in a different fashion.
And in Boston, one juror who, among 12, found Capute not guilty of wrongdoing in the case of Norma Linus said any knowledge of her deceitful educational background would not have changed that verdict.
The whole case, as it unraveled, seemed to be, you know, the small guy at the bottom, you know, in this case, a nurse that was dumped with a lot of responsibilities that perhaps were, I shouldn't say shirked, but whatever, by other people, and good thing common sense prevailed, in my opinion.
In all likelihood, this will be the last time that Anne Capute faces the Massachusetts Board of Nursing, but it will not be the last time that the board hears anything about Morton Hospital and the death of cancer patient Norma Linus. The DA says it has 3 more cases pending and that they will be ready soon. Jan Harrison, News 7, McCormick State Office Building.
According to the nursing board, the surrender of Anne Capute's license is unconditional and for an indefinite period of time.
You know, if your children ever...
Widely publicized mercy killing case today admitted she used fake credentials to enter nursing school. Capute made that admission just as the Board of Registration of Nursing was about to begin its investigation into charges against her. Capute says she used a friend's name and grades to gain entrance to nursing school, and she then stunned the board members by voluntarily offering to give back her nursing license.
The case is closed. The case is moved.
This is the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
What, admit the deceit?
Not admit the deceit, turn in that license. I worked hard for that.
You feel the public has accepted your innocent finding?
I certainly hope so, because I was, and I am.
Capute says she now plans to move out of the state with her family. Tonight, Governor Edward King has...
Our opinion is that had Norma Linus been rendered good medical care, that she'd be alive today. She went in with, we believe, treatable cancer, and we think she should have been treated in a different fashion.
Attorney Wynn says the family of Norma Linus is still pursuing the case.
Problems continue for hockey star Jim Craig.
The name and the high school transcript of a childhood friend without her knowledge. Because I had left school in the 11th grade to help support my family. I really didn't know that I could have taken a GED equivalency exam. I honestly thought that I'd have to go back to school for 3 years. And at 40, I couldn't afford that kind of a wait. What I did was ethically wrong, but I didn't think I was doing anything illegal.
Although Capute admitted using a false name, she maintained that she had always been a good nurse, had never done anything wrong, and had graduated in the top half of her nursing school class. But nevertheless, after her statement, her attorney, P.J. Piscitelli, turned her license over to the board, as Capute, her eyes filled with tears, was embraced by her daughters and husband. Outside of the hearing room, she told reporters that she will now have her name legally changed to Anne L. Capute, and she plans to take her high school equivalency exam to get her diploma. Capute says she and her family will be moving away from Massachusetts in the very near future. And she says, quote, "I fully intend to be a nurse, whether it be in another state or another country, because," she says, "I was a good nurse, and I still am." Jim Terracani, Newswatch 10, Boston.
Just ahead on the 11 o'clock.
The death of cancer patient Norma Linus.
In conclusion, this act does not erase my mind of the knowledge of nursing that I have, nor is my spirit dead.
after being granted a new trial in a controversial rape case. They were accused of gang raping a former beauty queen in January of 1980 and pleading guilty in return for suspended sentences. But a public outcry forced the original judge to reverse the decision and order the men to jail. Their appeal went all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. Today, the 5 men were back in Norfolk Superior Court. This was the 3rd time they were to be sentenced. Judge Roger Donahue said the case offends all sense of fairness. In ordering a new trial, the judge addressed all 5 defendants individually, after which they would not speak, but their lawyers did.
We're very happy that they weren't sent to prison. However, we still believe that we should be given the alternative of the same sentence so that our rights not to be put in double jeopardy will be protected.
Will the Commonwealth go to trial on this case?
I expect that I'll be ready for trial December 2nd. We will go to trial.
Judge Donahue said the lure of a suspended sentence was the only reason the men pleaded guilty. And in a controversial case in Vermont tonight,
5 young men who pleaded guilty to the gang rape of a Whitman woman. At the new trial, the defendants will have the chance to plead not guilty. Now, last October, Judge Hubert Abrams gave the young men suspended sentences after they admitted to the rape. Following a huge public outcry, the sentences were revoked. The case finally went to the Supreme Court after the defendants were resentenced to terms at Walpole. Today in Superior Court Judge Robert Donahue, or Roger Donahue, issued a ruling against the Abrams resentencing. He called that ruling unfair and ordered a new trial for the 5.
I think that the judge was very fair in what he tried to do. He tried to accommodate the interests of society, interests of the Commonwealth, and interests of defendants. And I think in that respect, he tried to be fair.
The 5 were released on personal recognizance. Their new trial starts December 2nd. It's not yet known if the alleged rape victim will testify. Tonight, a Vermont teenager is...
After widespread criticism of the October 1981 decision, which came without a trial, Judge Herbert Abrams changed his mind and said the men would have to face trial or else go to Walpole Prison for 3 to 5 years. A series of appeals led to today's action by Judge Roger Donahue, who is allowing the men to withdraw their original guilty pleas in preparation for that new trial. Parents of the defendants are pleased, but defense lawyers still think the original sentences should stand.
Thrilled to death.
Thrilled to death. Did you think he was going to have to go to Walpole?
Oh,
no
please.
No, don't say. But you're very happy about this decision.
Very happy.
Thank you.
Of course, we're very happy that they weren't sent to prison. However, we still believe that we should be given the alternative of the same sentence so that our rights not to be put in double jeopardy will be protected.
Court officials tell News 7's Lynn Vaughn the new trial should begin no later.
The scars.
Never forget it. At least I'll never forget it. I mean, I still have nightmares of it sometimes.
Geraldine Cayetano recalls the October 1981 explosion in which she and her son Billy suffered third-degree burns over much of their bodies. The blast ripped through the Holbrook aerosol can manufacturing plant where the Cayetanos worked. 5 workers died, 18 were injured, many like the Cayetanos with second and third-degree burns over as much as 80% of their bodies. Today, lawyers for the victims who sued the aerosol research laboratories and 3 related firms announced they have reached a $30 million proposed settlement in the case. For Geraldine Cayetano, the settlement comes after more than 3.5 years of physical and emotional suffering.
Well, it will help. That's all I can say. I mean, you know, I wish I was like I was before, but you can't go back, so you have to make the best of what you are now.
Like his mother, Billy Cayetano has had to overcome physical and emotional scars from the blast. He credits the Shriners Burns Institute, where he spent the first 6 weeks of his recuperation.
Well, if I didn't go to Shriners, for one thing, I don't think I would have pulled through it either. Because the people up there, they're good people. They helped me through a lot of emotional problems and stuff like that up there. At first, I didn't even want to leave the hospital. I don't know, I guess life goes on.
The attorney for the Cayetanos, Pat Piscitelli, called the proposed settlement a fair one. It includes more than $30 million in compensatory damages and a $125,000 fund to help pay for